Everybody. This is Wednesday, March the 2nd, already the second day of March. I wanted to welcome everyone who's watching and give you a little housekeeping before I introduce our guest. Number one, you are watching this on 4 or 5 social media channels. Secondly, the name of this program is You Change the World Because You Do, and we'll see why this is called that way. Thirdly, I want to also mention that you have a chat possibility, asking questions, making comments, but we don't have the ability to answer the chat on the chat line. So we can just see it and then react to it, but we then don't really see how we can answer it. It's a limitation of the technology with LinkedIn and with some other platforms. So I just wanted to let you know. This is also recording, so you'll find that on our respective websites. And I think that's about it. If I can also ask the YouTube watchers to subscribe, down there under the screen, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I think that's it. So I would like to introduce you to Maureen Martin, who is a person that I've been knowing for a while now. And I'm so happy that you joined us today.
Well, thank you so much, Andre. It's really my pleasure to be here. I'm excited for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. So I think we should really just dive in to first making a little bit of an introduction. There is always two options to introduce someone. Or I'm preparing something and I ask you about it, or I embarrass you to ask you to introduce yourself. So if you could just tell us a little bit what you do, where you are, a few things like that.
I'm more than happy to.
Please.
Well, here's my story, so to speak,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And since we're going to be talking about storytelling. So I'm
Yes.
originally from West Virginia, a small town in West Virginia with not even a stoplight along the Ohio River is where I had grown up. Went to school in West Virginia and then got my master's degree, went to Boston College to watch West Virginia University play Boston College in a football game. Stayed
Okay.
there for 5 years and then moved to New Jersey to work in New York City. I've worked in various corporate environments in finance. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in data analytics and media research. My husband and I own a small Irish pub on the Jersey Shore. We've had it in April, it'll be 27 years. We have 4 children.
Yes.
After I had supported my husband in his fulfilling his dream, then I had started coaching. So I've been
Yes.
coaching now for the past 4 years. I do work for a number of organizations, and I absolutely love it because this is an interesting space in which you can hear a lot of stories, and everybody has one.
Fantastic, Maureen. Thank you. That's really amazing because you're the first coach that I'm inviting over
Oh,
and
really?
accepted to join me. Yes.
Well,
So that makes up the two of us, and it's true that we're passionate about what we do. Absolutely. So the theme of this program is really that people don't realize, most of them, that they are having an impact on other people, especially when they have a position, whichever it is, a leadership position, or being in the household, or being in a situation with other friends, but they are the ones who have most impact in a moment, and that impact in a moment can change something for someone's life, or can even save someone's life. So, by saying that, what does it bring to your mind, you as a coach or as a person, when I say people impact other people and they
yeah.
don't realize it, and they don't realize it?
I think you're right, like, that people don't always realize the impact they have on others. Often with many of my clients, we talk about intent and
Yes.
impact. And after thinking about that intent and impact, we realize that sometimes it could be a smile that could impact someone in a certain way. To I ran into somebody at Starbucks recently, and she had told me about a conversation that I had since forgotten that changed really the trajectory of her family's life. Because I was sharing a story about how my son had gone to a local Catholic high school, and based upon my experience, she then had signed her son up to go to this same school. So as a result, it really changed the way that they lived their life. And the leaders with whom and so that's one experience.
Yeah.
Uh, there are so many others where I hear stories every day from my clients about how they have to give negative feedback or feedback in such a way. And it just depends upon like their own values and their beliefs and empathy that
Yes.
they can offer to those with whom they work in order to, make them a better version of themselves. And then they too can go out. It's the ripple effect that they
It's
can make.
true.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say intent, I understand what you mean, and this is interesting. So that means that someone has the intention to have an impact on on
Mm-hmm.
someone or on a group of people.
Yeah.
So what do you think it changes in the mind of that person when they prepare themselves for that? What do you think it changes
Yeah.
in their mindset?
Yeah. That's a good question because I think many times people don't go in with an intention of impacting someone the way that they do, because in that way it requires two people or two parties, right? And given that recognizing the impact, whether it be positive or negative, can be really important and kind of digging deep there a little bit. If they do go in with the intention of understanding someone else, for example, if they're delivering feedback, it doesn't have to be positive or negative, but if their intention is to deliver it in such a way that the other person understands it, then the impact can be far different than if they come from a different lens.
And so that's good. That's the intention one. And I completely agree with what you're saying, and I can relate to that. For example, someone makes a presentation simply and prepares that presentation with a very clear goal, that they have an audience that they know they are presenting to. It can be a group of, I don't know, let's say a group of doctors in the room from a healthcare standpoint, and then prepare the presentation with a goal of what is the message going to convey, and maybe be revolutionary about something or an invention or a finding. So that's intention. Now, what about the other angle, which is someone tells you a story because you're a coach and they want to share something with you, a situation of the day, and they don't realize what they did by what they said or in a dialogue with someone. So what could you think about that? That when really the person needs to become aware of the
Yeah.
impact that they have.
Well, as coaches, as you well know, Andre, we shed light on things that a lot of our clients can't see for themselves. And I think I take that approach in life. I'm just curious by nature, but I really want to understand what it is that they see that I don't see, and what do they see that I'm not seeing. So, um, I think it's about shedding light on the impact. And sometimes it's without emotion. I don't have to be tied to an emotion, and many people are. Um, but I think it's really about that shedding light on things that maybe, especially my clients, can't see for themselves.
Right, right. That's true. That's what we do. Yeah, we're shedding light. Um, Now let's try to get a little bit into a few examples because I try to myself connect to a couple of situations. But um, let's say for the sake of an example that someone has an habit to walk through office, cubicles. It's a leader and it's a kind of field person. That person is in charge, right? Like say a call center, and the person is the manager of that call center.
Mhm.
So there is many people in one room with headphones and the microphone, and they speak to customers, for example, or something like that. And they get upset. They get extremely upset about one situation. Someone is not doing the job or let someone else do the job, and doesn't really hold responsibility. Um, Now that person is challenged by what to do. They
Mhm.
have to stop the person from having this attitude, this behavior. So there is a different ways, and we are going to be coaching them on the situation. I'm not
Mhm.
thinking too much about the coaching now. I'm thinking about the person not realizing again. this unawareness is the trigger. In other words, they come to you or me, or they don't just, they are going to talk to their husbands or their wives in the evening, and they're going to say, you know what happened today? And then the other person, by just listening to the story, is going to make that person aware of what she or he did,
Mhm.
right? The impact that was negative or positive on this situation that I described, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, it becomes perspective, right? Like stories have started, like it's the story that someone tells, and it's from their perspective. Either
Yes,
it's from the manager that's walking around, they have one perspective, and the person who's getting upset has another perspective, right, on the story.
yes, yes,
And sometimes it's the truth might lie somewhere in between in terms of, somebody got upset as to the why, who knows why somebody got upset because we all have triggers. But stories have been for ages and ages, even before there was an alphabet, and that was passed down from generation to generation, different stories based upon our values and our beliefs. And sometimes, even as individuals, we
culture.
can kind of relate to somebody in the story. So, even in the experience that you described, where a manager's walking around an office, many of us can put ourselves in that same situation where maybe it's a boss that maybe something that they said or did, or maybe just by virtue of them being there made us upset. Or maybe it
Yes,
was, somebody that was calling in this call center type
yes, yes.
area that you described that triggered them to become upset. So I guess as it relates to the impact, again, I'm just curious by nature. So I really love to ask those what questions without attachment to the emotion. And so
Hmm.
start to really understand what's happening for them instead of internalizing it, because we all have an internal narrative as well. And really seeking to understand. When we ask what questions, it provokes thoughts. When we ask how questions, that will move us to action. And why questions, as a coach, as you know, we have to be a little careful with because it can create a defense mechanism that comes
Right,
up.
right. Yes, interesting. The fact that you're detaching it yourself to do that, the what questioning. And it's true, emotional. I mean, a reaction like being upset is an emotional reaction.
Mhm,
So, story that triggered it is all everything. And that gets us to this topic of storytelling.
mhm,
Well, the storytelling, there is different things that I wanted to talk about with you, especially because you use that a lot, and this is something that you're passionate about. That's why, there is two or three contexts I would like to discuss, even though we have a short time here. Is the aspect of using storytelling to convey a message. It
mhm,
is use. It's also kind of transforming a little bit our nature when we're a little bit introverted or secretive, and we want to start communicating and get out of our comfort zone and become more communicative. That's the second one. The third one, I reserve it for later.
okay. So you may have to remind me of the first one, make sure that I can address them.
So the first one again, using storytelling as a way to communicate,
Okay,
and what does it really do? And
okay.
can we give example to our audience also? Try to, I give you, I ask a question really high level, but it is definitely where I would like to get to, that people understand what storytelling is doing in enhancing the communication.
Yeah. Well, that's a great comment, question, or,
Yeah, yeah.
way to put it in context because I think his name is Jerome Brenner or Bruner, I believe, that he said that our minds were kind of wired for pattern recognition, and um, if we were to be told just facts, our memory is not as great. However, if
Mhm.
with stories, I think we're something like 22 times more likely to remember facts if they're in the form of a story. So that to me is fascinating. And I think that's probably why, for me anyway, I can remember the stories of many of my clients. But even think for yourself, like what are some of the stories that are most memorable in your own mind?
Mhm.
So that's, like a way that we communicate it is through stories. I have a lot of leaders that ask me specifically, I want to be, or they say, how can I become a better storyteller? How can I tell a story with all of this data?
Hmm.
And by
With all
convey,
these different.
pardon me?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah, I was hearing the word data.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times it's really connecting the dots so that people can really hear the narrative around this story. And again, it's around pattern recognition. So if A happens, then we would expect B, and then the end result would be C. And so there's a sense of comfort in that. There's a sense of control and structure that we have with the story. Um, it enables us to also get in touch with our emotions as well, and maybe even the emotions of those that are in the story as well. I mean, think back to childhood, so some of the stories you may have heard, right? And so for even children, they learn words and pattern recognition, but we ourselves, we continue to have some of those stories, and they've happened throughout, our lives, throughout different cultures and different organizations, um, countries. I mean, the list goes on, religions. So
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's, a way that we communicate is through these stories. They're not necessarily truths, it's what we believe to be true.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
really.
Can you
Many of the
elaborate? Yeah,
stories
can
that
you elaborate on that a little bit?
yeah, I would love to. Like, because you talked about this sense of comfort or leaning into discomfort. For
Yes.
example, I might wanna, I don't know, talk with my boss, but the story I tell myself is that they're too busy. They don't but is that true? Not necessarily. It might be a way that I can avoid approaching my boss, but it makes me feel better to tell myself they're busy.
Hmm.
Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah, it
Uh,
does. Yeah.
yeah, and it really gets down to our beliefs because maybe in, I don't know, the household that we had grown up in, maybe our parents were busy all the time. And so we may have said, there's no way that I can approach somebody that's in an authoritative figure or authoritative role because they're always so busy. So it's
So
again,
then, so then you're saying that the storytelling as a form of communication is going to help that person.
it could help or it could hinder them as well. Because
Mm.
what if they're not willing? And this is where we get back to impact. If we continue to believe the stories that we tell ourselves without
Okay.
becoming aware of the story, then the impact could be positive or negative. It becomes a limiting belief at times. But again, it's about that internal narrative and what we tell ourselves. So, if, for example, like I'll tell you a little story, not that it's a big one, but
Please.
say, for example, I mean, I don't know, but, my father, he had been an archaeologist as a hobby, and so I have memories of walking through freshly plowed fields at farms.
Right.
If my husband, for example, he never grew up where he was walking through the fields of farms. Everything around which he had grown up, things were built up. It was, more suburban, but building was happening all the time. We may have a different story around having open space, for example,
Right.
because he would think, it's commerce. He's an entrepreneur. It's commerce. We need to do that for our community. Building is good. Me, on the other hand, I come from a different perspective saying we need to continue to keep the open space because my perspective is a little bit different. Like I have a memory that exists around whether or not we should protect open space or not. And his perspective is different. Again,
Right.
it doesn't mean that one is bad nor good. It's the story that we tell ourselves and our passions might develop out of that.
This is a. I did not expect that part of the of the storytelling that you're referring to. That's interesting. Okay, I just want to reframe a little bit what you're saying in terms of um, when you tell a story to yourself, especially coming from the background of your youth or whatever you went through, a trauma, whatever. Well, that
Mhm,
becomes a bit psychology. It's about the kind of things you tell. In fact, a therapist, when you know you get stuck because of the story you tell yourself,
mhm.
for example, right?
So true.
So that's what the story you tell to yourself. And I know it's important, and I thank you for sharing that part. But I was referring more about the format of communication that you're going to use. If you tell a story to your children, like you said, the attention, the wording, everything is going to get to the, even almost to the subconscious of the child, but you're going to make it attractive. It's going to be
Mhm,
fascinating. It's going to be, uh, keeping attention, their
mm,
attention. So,
mhm,
so the storytelling, in other words, that I would like to talk about more is the one that we use as a way to communicate something, even if it would be something technical, a presentation about something really boring.
mhm,
An engineer mind is always very detailed. I hear
mhm,
often people telling me, "I'm so detailed." My boss tells me I'm too detailed. I have to do something completely more tactical, more strategic. I'm not a tactical guy. I'm not a strategic guy, so I don't know what to do. And then I try to ask if they have a story to tell from a
mhm,
user standpoint. For example, user experience for an engineer. Do you
mhm,
think about, the guy who's going to use the system that you're developing? So that's the kind of story I would like to talk about with you. What do you think helped you personally, for example, in your communication? Like that story you said, at Starbucks, an
mhm,
incident, something spontaneous that you do, and that makes you a better communicator because you're a storyteller. That's your style.
mhm. I think it is around self-awareness, Andre. Really
Yes,
becoming aware of, well, maybe being intentional, but becoming more self-aware of the words that I use, the impact that could possibly create, um, and really delivering the story. Like you said, if it's, some technical information that's to be delivered, I've got to keep my audience in mind, um, think about the user. How can we make this a little bit more exciting for them when some topic could be particularly dry? So a lot of
right.
leadership in my work, that is particularly an issue for them.
Yes. I'm going to, in fact, give you an example that is fresh. It was my last session with a client, and he was preparing a presentation, and he's really a very technical guy. So he was saying about a new system. He was presenting something about a new system to the
Mhm,
audience, and the audience that he would have, he's a manager, and he would have to explain to senior executives that what the new system is about and why the new system is better. But there were some rosy things told about the system, and he wanted to bring them to reality that it's not so rosy, and there is some offsets from the system that they have to be aware of. And then he
mhm,
said, when he was talking to me about the sunset, he said, "You know what? Imagine the sunset, and that it's going to be a little bit cloudy. I want them to feel that way." And I said,
mhm.
"Wow, this is wonderful what you're saying. It's powerful what you're saying." Right?
Right. It sounds like
So
it.
he's an engineer, he's a very technical guy, and he's talking
Mhm,
to me about sunset and cloudy and then some clouds that he has to talk
mhm,
about. Why did he bring that up? Because I think I asked him to forget his details and forget his knowledge of technical things. Try to sit yourself in the place of the audience. They are
mhm,
not interested in the details. So what are you going to do? What do you want to say to them? Oh, that it's a simple thing. It's better than the system before. It saves us time. All kind of things like that. But it's simple. People relate to situational things like that. And I think that's
mhm,
what, I mean, my view of storytelling as a form of communication is to take the topic or the goal you have. What do you want to convey? The message you want to convey,
mhm,
and
mhm,
turn it into a story, really, truly. You know, it's not, maybe it could start like once upon a time. you know.
mhm.
What do you say? What do you say about that? What do you
Well,
think?
I would agree with you. It might start with once upon a time, but like you said, you want to engage the audience as well. Make them, give them a sunset that would enable them to kind of see what you're seeing, feel what you're feeling, the same way that within a story that people can really relate to that. And that's what I said, that people, if within a story, facts can be like they'll be remembered 22 times, or it's more likely that they would remember it 22 times more. So
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing that if you have somebody who's very technical that has the ability to be able to talk about sunsets and even happily ever after, so to speak, then your ability to convey that message to them in a way that's memorable is far greater.
Right, right. And you know what? Maybe I could also tell people, try to put yourself in your mindset in the evening when you're a father and you tell a story to your kids. Why not? Why not?
That's
You
it.
know, why
Right.
not?
So true.
Absolutely. Well, I just invite people to think about it, to think about if they are introverted, if they have a blockage about communicating out,
Hmm.
if they have a fear about a certain situation where they're going to be exposed,
Hmm.
visible, vulnerable,
Hmm.
that the story can be a bridge, literally a bridge, that they can cross in order to get into this uncomfortable place, being
Hmm.
intentional, but in this uncomfortable place, the story is going to support them, like a slideshow, like a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
But the story alone, you're going to have a huge impact by sharing something personal with your audience. You can be in a
Hmm.
very serious setting,
Hmm.
but you can also crack a joke. I mean, I can because I'm coming from another culture. My son told me, "Never crack a joke, Daddy, because you never never understood." So,
Give me your
culture.
best one now. Yeah.
But storytelling includes humor, includes a change of tone, includes the sound of the voice, right? All of those things that I want to.
It does. When we think about maybe back to those times when maybe you told your son a story, it
Yeah,
probably wasn't monotone. It was probably with a little bit of, change in tonality, maybe even some nonverbal communication as well. And, maybe there was a sense of excitement and you build up to it wasn't just the words, right?
no, right,
And so that's where part of like the story comes in as well,
very
that
true.
you remember it differently as a result.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Maureen, we're getting a little bit to close this session today, and this live event. And I just think about what could you maybe share with us of your experience, and not necessarily with clients, not necessarily in coaching, life experience, where you felt you had an incredible impact on someone. I would love to. I'm sorry, I don't want to get you caught in my questioning, or surprise you with it. But yeah, something personal that you could share where you really know that you had an incredible impact,
An incredible impact. Let's see. Well,
memorable.
yeah, memorable. And I don't know that it's, in one particular arena per se, but I would definitely say with in my experiences with our little family business, um, as I said, it started off, it was my husband's dream, and my mother would always say, "Today's dreams are tomorrow's realities." And even on the wall of our pub, a little plaque says that my cousin had made that says, "Where the fire is hot, the beer is cold, and a beer lasts or a drink lasts longer than a story lasts longer than a drink." So people
That's
have
nice.
come in and out of our family business over the years, and only to be kind of, I don't know, we made their world different. It became kind of like their second living room for a lot of people where they become like family. And I think that maybe that's, an impact. My brother, we have a little bit of merchandise. My brother was in Scotland wearing, now from our little Irish pub in New Jersey, wearing a shirt that said the pub's name. And somebody said, "Oh, I've been there." He said, "No, no, this is my sister's place in New Jersey." And they said, "I know. I've been there."
I've been
And
there.
so, yes. So maybe a little bit of a story in terms of, and people said, and this person said, "I felt like family." And so if we can extend the boundaries, so family is not just in our little Irish pub, it's not our small family. It extends far beyond that with our boundaries. And I think maybe part of it is love that they felt just from being there, being able to tell their story and it lasting longer than a drink has
That's
been
beautiful.
impactful.
That's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Thank you. That's very nice.
Um,
I wanted to ask, I don't even, just a quick question about the pub. You closed probably during COVID, right?
We
At one
did.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is
Yeah.
there a before and an after about the people that come and what their experience is? Is there a
Yeah.
before and after? Yeah.
Well, many years ago when we first opened, we really did have more of an Irish slant, Irish music, Irish Cayleys, Irish sessions, Irish breakfast every Sunday morning, and the list of things had gone on. But now after COVID, there was a little, even last year, we were only open at 25% capacity,
Oh, right.
and for St. Patrick's Day anyway. And now we're at 100% capacity, so we're preparing for St. Patrick's Day. But I think we've probably gone a little bit away from our Irish roots at our local pub because it was really about not thriving, it was about surviving because we wanted
Right.
to continue to make that place of home feel comfortable for a lot of people. Like I said, for many, it was their second living room, that they just were there to, socially connect, to kind of make a difference in other people's world, whether it be a laugh or just, maybe you couldn't tell a joke, Andre, but some people in there can, but to be greeted with a smile.
Yeah.
So maybe in that way, we probably extended like our boundaries even a little bit more to be less to become more diverse, I suppose, maybe is what I can say. So,
Right.
but difficult
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yes, yes, difficult times, and we need these refreshing moments of a day, not only on ourselves, but when we can exchange and interact with other people, which was one of the uh, I would say most severe punishment of this pandemic. If you could stay healthy, you would still stay kind of isolated, right?
Mhm.
If you want to talk it that way. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Maureen. I
You're
really
so
appreciate it.
welcome.
And I would love to see you again. The truth
Uh,
is, we
well,
have
thank
plenty
you.
to talk again, I think. All right. And I invite everybody to, share comments on wherever you saw the program or see the program. Share your feedback, and we always try to do better. Next week, we'll have a first panel that's going to be a bit of a different format with several guests, and it will be for a little bit longer. It will be 15 minutes longer. And I keep the theme of next week a little secret until I will release the information in a few days. Okay?
I will
Thank
be
you again.
waiting. Thank you, Andre. Thanks so
All right.
much.
Bye. And thank you, everybody. Take care.